here's what's weird. First of all, what is it like to buy a company for $44 billion and then people call you a Nazi on that same thing that you bought?
I did not see it coming. It's classic. People will gobble anything down.
Yeah. Oh, he's never gonna stop.
Wait, what?
What is it like? Like all this, people used to. The left was in love with you.
Yeah.
And now the same idiots are calling you a Nazi. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life.
I mean,
there's so many examples of
yeah.
people saying my heart goes out to you.
Sure,
you did it with a little enthusiasm that probably wouldn't be recommended with hindsight.
Yes. But it was obviously meant in the most positive spirit possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously.
But
it's so strange where people want to think that you are openly publicly doing secret Nazi Sieg Heil hand motions.
And now I can never point at things diagonally. I can only point at things there and there. And then so you have to divide that.
Yeah.
Because that's where the spaceship is, over there. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
When CNN, when I was in all my trouble.
Absurd.
Every time CNN used a photo of me, it was one of the photos from the UFC weigh-ins where I go like this, welcome to the weigh-ins. So every photo is me. Every photo is me with.
It's absurd.
It's so crazy.
It's deliberate propaganda. So that they know it was not. It was obviously not meant in a negative way. That I literally said my heart goes out to you, and it was very positive. The entire speech was very positive. I was being very enthusiastic about the future in space, and it was a great crowd. So
yeah, you got a little pumped up.
Yeah, it got pumped up, exactly.
Yeah, that's all it is. Obviously. There's video of Tim Walsh doing the exact same thing. Right. Exact same thing. And he said, of course, it's a Nazi salute. He said that.
Right.
This is how crazy things have gotten.
Well, it's coordinated propaganda. So coordinated propaganda. Doesn't it seem weird that the legacy media all says the same thing? They all say the same thing at the same time using the same phrases. They don't even bother picking up a thesaurus.
Right.
So, right before, the debate between Biden and Trump. Everyone was saying sharp as attack. Who says sharp as attack? But
yeah, exactly.
It's not a common phrase.
It's definitely not common to be repeated on air with multiple people simultaneously. Yes. That's weird.
Yes.
That's coordinated.
100%.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like hundreds of people saying it simultaneously. They just got their instructions.
Yeah.
So essentially the Dem leadership or political leadership, they issue their instructions and their puppets carry it out.
Yeah.
And they're just like puppets in a puppet show.
And that's the problem that I see with all this Doge stuff.
Right.
Because everybody should be celebrating that we've found a way to cut out fraud and waste.
Yeah.
If you pay taxes and you don't like that you have to pay so much in taxes, and then you find out that there's significant fraud and waste that's been exposed, you should be celebrating it. This shouldn't be, oh no, the wrong people found this fact and now it's a bad thing.
Yes.
And then there's the propaganda, the mind of calling it U.S. aid.
Yeah,
instead of the United States Agency for International Development. It sounds like it's feeding hungry people.
Right.
People are going to starve, Elon. This is horrible. And then you find out, actually, it's like $250 million for transgender animal studies.
They're literally mutilating animals.
Yes.
Mutilating animals in demented studies.
Yes.
That are like the worst thing you could possibly imagine from a horror show.
The beagle one. The beagle puppy one.
Horrific,
yeah, where they covered their head in a basket and put fleas on their heads so they'd eat them alive.
Yeah.
And then they studied these beagles and then killed them. Like, what are you going to learn from that? That's good for anybody.
Yeah. There's some psychotic stuff that happens. So, yeah, I guess the real threat here is to the bureaucracy. So, you probably saw let's say like Trump is a threat to our democracy, which is ironic since he was elected with the majority of the, popular vote. They started saying I was a threat to democracy. But if you just replace threat to democracy with threat to bureaucracy, it makes total sense.
Right.
So, the reality is that our elected officials have very little power relative to the bureaucracy until Doge. So Doge is a threat to the bureaucracy. It's the first threat to the bureaucracy. Normally the bureaucracy eats revolutions for breakfast. This is the first time that they're not, that the revolution might actually succeed, that we could restore power to the people instead of power to the bureaucracy.
Now, the size of it
was
when you guys first started investigating it, when you first get in, how much of it was shocking? Like just the size of it all?
Well, the size of it all, the small decisions result in multi-billion-dollar outcomes. So, we'd see, it was a case where we saw one person was getting $1.9 billion sent to their NGO, which basically got formed about a year ago and had no prior, no prior activity. So they just stand up an NGO. The whole NGO thing is a nightmare. And it's a misnomer because if you have a government-funded, non-governmental organization, you're simply a government-funded organization. It's an oxymoron.
Right. It's a loophole.
Yes. It basically, the government-funded NGOs are a way to do things that would be illegal if they were the government, but are somehow made legal if it's sent to a so-called nonprofit. But these nonprofits are then used to people cash out these nonprofits. They become very wealthy through nonprofits. They pay themselves enormous sums through these nonprofits.
It's so insane that that's been going on for so long.
It's a gigantic scam, like one of the biggest, maybe the biggest scam ever.
And how many NGOs?
I think there's a total number of NGOs, probably millions, but in terms of large NGOs, tens of thousands. It's actually kind of a hack to the system where someone can get an NGO stood up for a fairly small amount of money. Like George Soros was really good at this. Like George Soros is like a system hacker. Like he figured out how to hack the system. He's a genius at arbitrage. These days he's pretty old, but a genius at arbitrage. So he figured out that you could leverage a small amount of money to create a nonprofit, then lobby the politicians to send a ton of money to that nonprofit, so you can take what might be, a $10 million donation to a nonprofit to create a nonprofit and leverage that into $1 billion NGO. A nonprofit is a weird word. It's just a non-governmental organization, and then the government continues to fund that every year, and it'll have a nice sounding name, like the Institute for Peace or something like that. But really, it's a graft machine.
And what are the requirements with that money? What do they have to do?
Just really no requirements at all.
So they just get grants and the government just assumes that they're doing good work.
I think a lot of people in the government know that they're not doing good work. But it's a giant graft machine.
But surely
people online are like unpacking this,
right? It almost seems fake. Like when you're seeing how we were covering this article that said 55,000 Democrat NGOs were discovered that had been contributing to campaigns and moving things around and pushing propaganda, and they were all connected. And they found it through AI. That you have to go through steps and steps and steps to figure out where the money's coming from. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's all funneling down to this group, and this group does that. And it's a giant propaganda machine, a giant regime change machine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
but does it do some good as well?
It does some good. So it's like it's not like 0% good. If it was really 0% good, it'd be much easier to attack. So there's going to be some percent good that they add in there, but it's like it might be 5% or 10% good, but 95% not.
So, is there a way to audit all this stuff and find out, oh, these people are actually just sending food to poor people. These people are actually just helping people with water in third world countries. There's a way to do that and keep funding those?
Yeah, I mean, we have continued to fund things that appear to be legitimate, even with the flimsiest. If there's even the flimsiest excuse, like I just say, like, send me a picture of the thing. Like, you could literally have AI generate the picture, but if you're not even willing to try to trick me, then we're like not going to send the money. Okay.
So, what restrictions were put on? There was something set aside, like medicine and. There's what was set aside that there wasn't going to be a freeze on?
Work for like Ebola prevention. I actually don't even know if this work is even effective. It may or may not be. Like it could be the kind of thing where you sort of fund Ebola prevention, but it turns out that actually you're funding a lab that develops new Ebola recipes or something.
Yeah.
And they claim it's Ebola prevention, but it's actually Ebola creation. So some of these things I don't know. I mean, just. But it just seems like we shouldn't be sending taxpayer money to dubious enterprises overseas.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And why are we doing it? Like, what exactly is the reason? Is it because we want to make friends with these people so the Chinese don't take over, the Russians don't take over? Okay, how much of that is like a good thing? How much of that is smart to do? And how much is a grift? And without any sort of oversight, which has really been going on for so long, they've just had free run.
Yeah. Well, also we just have a real issue with the budget deficit. It's gigantic. So, like if all things being equal, if we didn't have a gigantic budget deficit where interest payments, the interest on the national debt exceeds the Defense Department budget, which is truly astounding. Which means so we're paying over $1 trillion of interest on the national debt. Then okay, we would have more room for wasting money, basically. But when we're spending so much money that the country is going bankrupt, then we really need to stop spending money unless we're sure it is good value.